Go.
Okay, it is
Take a few.
6:35, and I want to call to order this meeting of the Hamilton Master Plan Committee. First and foremost, happy Valentine's to everybody. Sorry about the night that we picked for the meeting, but, you know, it's here. We finally have the master plan in one fluid 100-page document, so I thought it important, you know, that we get together one last time, maybe walk through, not page by page, because we've looked at every page and a lot of good feedback, and Sari did a great job putting everything together, but maybe just hit the major headers. If anyone had the opportunity to read through it, comments, anything like that, we can take the opportunity to do that. And then really discuss if we should take a vote on, you know, finalizing it, at least for this stage, to be forwarded along to the planning board to be adopted. So with that, Sarah, if I can ask you to kind of show us what's behind door number 1 here.
Were we gonna do attendance, sir?
Attendance.
Attendance?
Do,
Do we-
Roll
do we do
call.
attendance?
okay, let's do
Roll call.
let's do a roll call. Start over to our left.
Marnie Crouch here.
Rosie Kennedy here.
Ted Ackworth.
Bill Wilson here.
Jack Lawrence.
That's it. We have a quorum. Thank you for making sure I did that.
Is this everybody? Are we missing anybody?
Dana,
Dana, we're
Dana,
just missing
Dana.
Dana.
which is pretty good, only missing one person. All right, so it's great to be back in Hamilton. It's been a few months. So yeah, Bill pretty much summed it up. We have this full draft of the plan, and at this point, our job tonight is to sort of get this into a spot where you all feel comfortable taking a vote on it. So your final duty as the Master Plan Steering Committee is to formally vote to recommend this plan for adoption to the planning board. And then, you know, they obviously have their own full hearing on it. So it would be great if we could, you know, with discussion, I'm sure, I'd be very surprised if there were no comments, but hopefully, you know, by the end of this session, we'll go through any corrections, changes, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable making a vote, you know, with, you know, conditions and, you know, with changes as discussed tonight. I know, Patrick, you already pointed out an error with the zoning map. That's been noted. Just some.
What was that? I'm sorry.
So apparently there was some zoning change. Whatever source I used, I
Okay.
can't, at this point, it was months ago I made this map, but some zoning change there was not
Okay.
reflected. But Patrick pointed it out. So,
So maybe, would you like me to make a comment?
Sure, I don't, like logistically, do we want to go around the room and mention comments, or do we want to go through the headers and then have an opportunity for individual notes within each of the categories, whatever?
Well, we could do that. I would,
Go ahead, Jack, why don't you
I
kick us
just
off?
think that this thing, I can't see that this thing is even close to being ready for, you know, daylight. It's got tremendous amount of typos in it. It's got a lot of strange, you know, that just things that are wrong. Just an example, woodland mead is woodland meadow, for example. There are such things as 5.6 miles of interstate in Hamilton. Interstate is defined subsequently as being a road connecting different states where the speed limits would typically be 55 miles per hour up to 80 or 80 miles an hour or something of that nature. There is nothing in Hamilton that I'm aware of in all the time that I've lived here that's even close to that. There's just a whole lot of stuff. And then I basically, because my my printer would not print, I skipped to page 78, which were the recommendations, and ended up with just a whole lot of things that were either wrong or misstated, or, for example, the CPC said that is providing for the town hall rehab $1 million. I believe, Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $4 million, is it not? That's correct. And There are things like that. It's just a whole lot of errors of fact all through here without taking you through all these.
Yeah,
notes I
so
have on it.
we do want to fact check everything and go through anything like the interstate or the mileage and it may be in areas, because some things are all outdated already, right?
That's
Like
exactly right.
Like probably the million became 4 million, and maybe we just talk about sources of funding, or not. The other big thing around Town Hall was, it's going to be carbon neutral. Patrick, you're probably
The
some of
sine qua non
that.
of anything happening in this town, housing-wise or commercially, is water. And I went to the meeting on the 30th, which was the Bruce Tarr's wrap-up of where we are right now. And one option is spelled out here, and that is to access the Beverly-Salem Water Board. The Beverly-Salem Water Board is probably the least attractive option. The main option, I would believe, pursuant to the engineers coming out with their final readout on by March 31st, and hopefully sooner than that, will be somehow we can hook into the MWRA.
Right.
And not have to go and spend $50+ million on a new plant for the Beverly-Salem Water Board and another $1 billion+ for some reservoir up on Route 1 that drowns one of the prettiest valleys around here. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So these are things that are critical to the commercial development. It's really the sine qua non of doing anything in this town, as I say. So it's that level, without going through all my notes here, which I
Right, no.
do.
And I think that's where we run a risk a little bit of, like, we shouldn't give a solution, like even in your water example, to say this is the best solution. We should say,
No,
we need to
possibility.
resolve. Right, yeah, we
Possibility.
could call out
These are the things that are
options,
happening.
but make sure that when implemented, the water department, DTW, we put people who are responsible for each of the goals and tasks, to make the best decision when the time comes. But we also want to make sure this, my understanding was, this still had to go through some cosmetic stuff and some vocabulary stuff. I noticed too where, I think Winthrop was called Whitman School.
Whitman, exactly.
In there, so that was on page 71, I believe.
And then down below was back to Winthrop again.
Yeah, and so then there's a couple things like that we gotta go through, but I also wanna make sure, and I don't know how to resolve, if it's best for, Jack, on your notes, or if others have examples too, that we just kinda go through and make sure we correct anything that's not factual. There were some missed things I saw too, like number of acres in town was one thing on one page, and then another page it was off, but I think some of that, I read to believe in an asterisk that it didn't include, I don't know, roadways or something. So I kind of just skipped by that, but, yeah, anybody else find,
Well, let me just say, there's one other thing that's really critical, and that is our representative and former member, Kristen's last name is not Kastner, it is Kastner, K-A-S-S-N-E-R, not K-A-S-T-N-E-R. So we've got, that's a critical thing to get right off the bat.
I have to share Jack's concern. I found numerous typos, numerous inconsistencies in capitalization, naming of entities, consistencies in references to state law, whether numbers are written out or spelled out, or the numerals themselves are used. There are references to Chapter 61, but of course there's Chapter 61A and 61B. Substantively, there are problems with respect to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, which should be always identified as Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and it's sometimes referred to as Gordon Conwell or Gordon Conwell Seminary, but the correct name should be used. But the master plan refers to the seminary leaving the site, and now, at least my present understanding is, and I think that Ken Barnes can corroborate this, is that the seminary is going to remain on the entire site, and it intends to sell just the apartments. So that has to be clarified. And then the whole discussion of the MBTA communities law is a little bit too brief, and it also doesn't reflect the fact that the Select Board has authorized the expenditures of funds to have an initiative for a form-based code that will address, at least in part, some of the Section 3A requirements. So that's a bit of an issue as well. And then I just found that the charts at the end have problems. For example, the key refers to immediate, short-term, and long-term, and ongoing, and we have references to medium-term, near-term, and just all sorts of inconsistencies, and they may be addressed through a find and replace, but right now, in this condition, if it were to go to the planning board, I would be distressed, because it would reflect badly on me as chair of the planning board, that I didn't insist that a lot of these, the problems that I see here aren't corrected before it's circulated.
And that is the name of tonight. We will fix all that. So I think, so if Jack and Marnie and maybe some others have like long lists of individual corrections, maybe the most efficient way to do that would be to get those in writing, unless there's some that you think are worth discussing further than we already have. But
Well, one of the problems I saw was that there's an inconsistency in the number of housing units in Hamilton. I found that, I'll have to see where I can find that.
At the beginning.
2830, I think it said.
Okay, on page 44, it's 2,783, and on page 69, it's 2,804. It makes a difference, because on page 69, it says that Hamilton would need to add 166 affordable units. Now, if Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary were to sell its apartments, and there are 209 apartments now, undoubtedly there would be a fewer number of apartments after they were rehabbed. But if those apartments were leased, and 25% of those apartments were affordable at 80% of AMI, we would satisfy our 10% requirement under the subsidized housing index, and we could take control of the 40B situation in town. So that's something that I think needs to be considered here.
Well,
And
that's
we're-
also speculative in its future. It's not anything that has any substance right at the moment.
Right, but the one thing is true, is that the seminary is staying, and they're selling the apartments.
That's immediate.
That's immediate.
That's what's got to be negotiated.
That has to be addressed. So,
But that's not negotiated yet, right? I mean,
Right.
we're not at a point.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I-
the last thing I think the planning board talked about, you didn't want to split it up, right?
well, from what I understand right now, Joe and John Witten and probably Merwin Walters are addressing the sale of the apartment somehow, some way, coupled with the development agreement.
Right.
And-
Which is a critical piece, right? But so if that development agreement didn't come into play and we got some type of financial benefit, because if we add those 209 units, right, that's going to impact all of our services and be a cost to the town, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, none of that is done. And I think that's
No.
what Rosie's point is.
Right.
For all of this stuff we're talking about, the risk we run of saying what it is right now is might be wrong next week.
Right.
So how do we not end state the solution, but talk about even MBTA? Here's the recommendation, or whatever we want to call it. These parties need to stay in tune with it and comply, or these are the consequences. Water, we have issues with water. We need to find a solution. And maybe we name a few examples, but I think
Possibilities.
unless it's done and checked, I don't think we call it out.
Well, no, I'm just,
Also, I mean, because then you could never have a master plan, because there's always something that's, in the future, something that's on the front burner.
Right, but to Marnie's point too, we have to, it's a living document, so it has to be fluid in that it evolves and changes as decisions are made. But we need to make sure we are covering the topic so that those who are handed it to implement and address them and resolve know that this is what the Master Steering Committee, through, community meetings, has determined is important,
The big problem is that I've been told reliably, they have a buyer. And all they're just saying now, the only thing stopping them is the town is negotiating with the town the terms under which the zoning will be made appropriate so that they can then transfer title. So the worry is that it's absolutely critical that we use this opportunity to take care of our 40B obligation. And
Yeah, so all that's
this is
gonna
the
be-
point. This is just a critical factor at this stage, because if we blow that in the negotiation, the town's gonna go a whole different direction. It's gonna be really bad. It's just gonna get worse and worse. So this is really, it's a warning shot across the bow, as it were. But it's just.
And Chabaco Road's the same thing, right? There's a pedestrian path.
Chabaco Road, it says Chabaco Road was supposed to have been completed in 2020. It's still not tarred. It's got.
Yeah, but I don't mean that, I mean the property and,
133 Essex?
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a whole different.
That's another
That's all-
40B, I mean,
That's
all of
not
that
even
is.
mentioned in here, and it really doesn't need to be.
No, it
because-
doesn't, but
Another
we brought
future.
up the Gordon Conwell needing to be part of our 40B. That's why we stay away from naming places that do that, other than knowing that when the property's available at Gordon Conwell, that, that the town, put the best interest in, I don't know what we.
But the discussion in here was back when the Gordon Conwell was thinking of selling the whole place.
Right.
Now they're saying, we're definitely staying.
Yeah, that has to be fixed. They're staying.
It's not, I mean, if we know things, there's no sense in putting something in there we know is already inaccurate.
Right. So them staying might be inaccurate in a month.
How about
Well,
it's in
Telling
flux?
you, none of that, everything's in flux.
Right, the future plans of Gordon.
You just said you know they have a buyer. I mean, they could be
Right.
doing and I'm not speaking as a select person, I gotta be careful because I know nothing. But, they could be just parsing off for cash flow to get by something and then selling the rest of it. once-
Oh, I think they're desperate for cash flow.
Absolutely, that's the
in
whole-
my mind, that's the nerve.
no, if they,
They're gonna have a hard time, A, it's not zoned appropriately, and we need to be careful about what we do there, but B, doing anything on that, especially with what happened behind on Bridge Street.
What scares me, and I brought this up with Joe at the CapCon here recently, and that is that I sent a letter to Vicky who said, for example, in the library, if we put PV on the roof of the rec center, we've already got PV on the roof of the library. And she said, we're trying to electrify the buildings because it's probably the best way to go, public safety and all the rest of it. She said, well, I can get you free PV panels, but it's gonna cost for operation. The whole point is, you should get the production from those panels. Apparently, in the last contract that was done, all we got was a 2 cents per kilowatt hour discount on the electricity we buy from National Grid. Now, if National Grid next summer went up 40%, that's not giving us any hedge at all. It's giving us nothing. So these are things that we need to kind of look forward to, and I think have to be in here, because if the town pays any attention to this thing,
So they
need to
just
have
gotta know, yeah,
information.
right, that we wanna be carbon neutral. I don't know that I read that in here by 2040. Maybe I missed it, I didn't go line by line, but those things like that, and we need to do what we
If
can,
we
like.
can hedge our
like we-
energy
Yeah.
costs, my God.
So logistically, how do we go through just to clean this up then? I know you were, I'm
happy to type
Wow.
up all my comments here. I'm happy to go through all of this stuff and send it along to you. And I'm happy to, if you, particularly in the let's do stuff area, if you want to send me a draft of that, I'm happy to go through all that stuff, because I'm pretty well up to date, I think, at this point, on where things are. And
Yes.
If I'm not, I know who is.
I'm hearing, there's a lot of fact-checking and grammatical cleanup to do. That seems reasonably straightforward, and we already have some written notes guiding some of that. I'm hearing, the strategic plan is meant to be a more generalized plan looking ahead over the next 10 years without so much current specificity that it could be outdated next week.
Right, exactly.
But we know there are, a good number of very active projects or issues happening right now.
Right.
That ought to be somehow or another referenced in there. We can't ignore them. And we don't know how half of them are going to turn out either. But, I'm not seeing in here either as its own section or located in relevant sections, a lot of relevant discussion about these active projects that could have a major impact in the future 10 years of the town.
Well, there are two facts in the 40B area too that are omitted. One is on Asbury Street, what is it, 145 units that?
No, 45 units on
45
Asbury.
45 units, and then 19 across the street. So
I think
that's not in here that I
there are
saw.
10
I may
across
have
the
missed
street.
something.
10 across the street.
10? I think it's more.
No, it's 10.
Just 10? I stand corrected.
Well, who knows? Next week, it might be a different number. Right. That's our point, is we're not trying
But they're
to
in
put the
discussion.
pin on it, but it is a very relevant project.
I think
They're
we-
So
in
it should be
construction right now.
mentioned in here.
I think we have to address the current situation and say it's conceivable that this can happen, although it may not. I mean, but we should recognize that these are-
Possibilities,
these
or use some
possibilities.
general language.
So, certainly if, I personally think that it would be so advantageous for the town to have some 200 units on the SHI from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, that referencing it in the master plan would assist Joe and whoever is the next chair of the select board in negotiating with the seminary. And I think that the seminary has been engaged with the town for years. It has been masterful in its ability not to make commitments. And so I'm trying to be circumspect, that a little statement in a master plan might just be the ticket.
Yeah, but I think the danger, I agree, we should say.
Just say, it's if it
But then
were
you're
to
gonna have every neighbor
happen.
around Bridge Street, when that comes and said, you as a town, put it in your master plan, so you
No,
would
I
drive
say
it.
just the potential.
Right.
Just
I-
recognize the potential. And
Wording matters, though, and I think what we would say is something like, when large properties become available, like, currently at Gordon Conwell, you say the whole theological seminary, they should explore all opportunities to, capitalize on the, like that.
Yeah,
Because you
yeah,
could
yeah.
call out Chabaco Road, Chabaco as well, right now. Why wouldn't we call that out?
Well, actually, I think that's slightly different.
Why wouldn't we call out Winthrop? I mean, I think it's any.
Winthrop School Site, that isn't
No, not
here.
a,
It's at Whitman, but it's,
Yes.
right, no,
It's
but I
not
mean,
Whitman.
is it in that, but I'm saying like, yeah, so that's where the consistencies and where it is, like, but where you address, we want to comply with state regs like, 40Bs or like the MBTA, every opportunity should be explored, such as, and then call those out, that's all.
there is Whitman there is Winthrop property discussion in here. That is in here.
There is, that's under, because it says the school is looking
Issues.
to, but I don't know that it ties in with, it could, 40B. I mean, that might be. with-
Section 5 is key issues, and yes, it does touch on strategic issues like water availability and commercial growth,
Yeah.
but it also mentions specifically some of these projects. But I think it could go further and cover more of them. Really, it's only, specifically any of these major ongoing projects, it's really only calling out, the maintenance of this building, the planning for the three, and, I would even call it planning for the Winthrop school site. It's really the three, it's really the Cutler School is what's driving it, because that building is end of life. Gordon Conwell gets, 8 lines. There's nothing about a number of these other projects in here.
Right, and it should, that's good, it's in key issues, but should it end up in, goals and implementation at the end,
Or a new section of like current major projects.
Well,
To
if
me,
there's
they
a-
should line up with the key issues, right? So we have key issues and we have ongoing projects that are addressing our key issues. We should continue to explore these and others as they become available.
So
I feel like-
there's
oh.
a section under key issues for affordable housing, and that's where we can reference some of these
Right.
projects.
Yeah, I feel like the key issues is probably the section to address some of this. Yeah, so,
The other thing that I noticed is that some of the footnotes, I tried to follow them and get more information with respect to them, and I was not able to do that in all instances.
double check the footnotes. Got
And
it.
Marnie, I mean, it's coming to your group next, so I would absolutely take your guidance on how, the best form and this to come into something that you're gonna like lead, for the adoption with the next planning
Well,
group. so.
I think Patrick knows me well enough in the way I go through minutes that, Sarah, I apologize, you're not going to like me after you're done with my comments.
Oh, that's all right, I can take it.
The other thing is, there were maps were not labeled, and there was, on page 4, it talked about the town owning 800 acres as shown on map 4.1.1. And I never could identify 4.1.1. And 800 acres is a hell of a lot of acreage. It's referring to vacant land that was up for grabs kind of thing. I'd love to see that.
If you look at the recent Cutler School Building Committee report,
haven't
it
seen
lists,
that.
it lists something like 24 potential alternate sites, most of which are public land.
Really?
Yeah, which I didn't realize.
Is that on the town website?
I
It's
don't
on
know.
the school,
Hamilton and
it's on the
The
school website, or a link to
Because
the,
they looked at Hamilton and Wenham.
There's like
so-
one page Hamilton's
One
alternative
page.
sites, and one page was Wenham alternative sites. But there were a lot.
That's good to
Now, few of those were developable. They were mostly wetland or unbuildable, but
Right.
it was still surprising to me how many
Yeah.
sites there are around the town, the two towns that are owned by the town.
The middle school was a swamp.
Well, and the middle schools their leases are running out in 2025.
Yeah.
I guess the town still own, I don't know who.
Well,
who's
no,
paying the
actually,
lease.
the regional
No one
owns
pays
the
them.
middle school, high school site, but all the rest of the leases are running.
yeah, and that was done intentionally to come, at this time. Now it'll be like a 15-year lease or something like that.
But that's a lot of acreage, and we don't want to keep building in swamps, I don't think.
It's more expensive.
I know the guy who did the digging.
All right.
He said it was black muck.
So,
Differential settlement is not so good.
because I had a lot of notes too, but I'm just trying to think of logistically how to move forward.
Now, I'm hearing we're all agreeing this isn't really ready to move forward to the
No,
next step.
definitely not. So now it's like, what are the next steps? Is it like a small group that gets together, or do we all go in and send notes? Or I think when we do that, then we get back and, I don't know, we're
I
further
think
down
Sarah's pretty
dated.
good at synthesizing. If we went by section, or chapters, and added notes there, you've always been pretty good about synthesizing all of the input, if that's something that would be agreeable.
Is this where you saw that?
Yeah, let's see.
Jack, this is what you were talking about, the 800 acres?
Yeah. It's actually repeated between 800 and 3,800. Quite a number of spots, so this would be very interesting, as Ted just pointed out.
All right, I'll double check that at least.
The description of the COA and.
I got it in an
had a
email, I can
conflict.
forward it to you.
All right. So, all right, let's see. So, what form do your notes exist in? Like, I see Jack's got a notebook there. Like, Bill, Marnie, anyone else who took notes? Did you guys just like scribble in the margins? Like, what are we looking at here?
I scribbled it.
I scribbled in the margins.
I scribbled in the margins.
Let's see. What's the easiest way to do this?
Oh, I have another question. We have an introduction, which is probably one chapter that the public will read, but who's going to draft that?
Are you gonna write that?
Yeah, what did we do? You
So-
wanted to take a draft and then together we could take another look at it? Or do you want me to take a shot at it? That doesn't matter.
Go ahead, I'm out for a couple of weeks.
All right, let's do that, and then when you're back, unless someone else has because we have some examples from other introductions and such, so I think I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah, and Bill, if you want us to take a look at it, like me and Judy, we're happy to.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And maybe
It's-
what you did last time I thought was effective. We kind of had a sheet and we referenced page number, maybe paragraph, and people gave you, the comments. Is that a way to facilitate?
Yeah, the
more?
common resolution matrix. I mean,
Right.
if you all are willing to go through and put your comments in that form, that would make it easier.
Right.
Yeah, that would actually be great. I mean, considering I was not going to force you to do that because you've already taken your notes without, having that plan from the beginning. So I was going to give you some leeway on that. For the other notes, I insisted on it. But if you're willing to do that, that would be helpful.
Well, what is-
Because then again, you can go and see exactly how they were addressed.
Well, some of the issues that I have, really aren't amenable to that. I mean, they're really,
Right.
I think you need to go into this document in Word and identify when you're going to capitalize town and when you're not, when you're going to refer to downtown Hamilton, capital D, or when it's going to be not capitalized, when you're going to refer to the town of Manchester as Manchester by the Sea, which is its official name, not Manchester. Multifamily should be hyphenated. They're just, those types of consistencies can be easily addressed through the word functions. But I had some just stylistic stuff, just word choices. Then I found some paragraphs were just a little redundant and awkward. There was some redundancy in some of the documents. And I found, just typos, sentences without periods and that type of thing. And I think Jack found even more critical things with respect to the maps than I did. So I don't know that for me, if I had to insert my comments into a form, it would, I don't know how efficient that would be.
I think there's a basic level here that you guys should be able to do without us having to highlight a grammatical inconsistency or spelling.
Yeah,
I
that
would
stuff
love
I
to
can
have
go
a
through if
hard
I.
copy
Oh.
that I can go through with a red pen. If I can get a hard copy that I don't have to print, because my printer, as I say, is proven utterly inadequate to the thing. Look at that. And
There you go.
with the introduction
With
and the
chocolate.
appendices. Have you got the appendices?
Oh, yeah, that's all stuff you've seen anyway, but yes, I can forward those along.
So I got to complete, so that it all kind of ties together, because I'm going to read it. That's what I'm going to.
Yeah, and even if you highlighted some of those capital D, I mean, to your point too, some of that is just a sit down, roll up your sleeves and
It's
go
easy,
through
it was
it.
easy
Yeah.
with a
Those
red
are
pen on it.
Yeah.
Appendices?
And-
I don't think so, no.
No, I don't have the appendices.
But it's like the inconsistencies too, or where it's like, where the numbers might be different based on the source. I know we listed sources and such, but, those are some of the things I was highlighting.
So I
And-
think, one of the things that I can think of is, when you talk about residents, single-family residents, there's yet it's not acres, it's acres. I'm sorry, land use, nope, I'm
Oh, all right.
misspoke, sorry.
Let me ask another question. 40S, is 40S still extant out there? In other words, is there still money at 7 units per acre available for school expansion and stuff?
So the deal with 40S is it does still exist, but the criteria is so tough that it's hardly ever been used. Like, it's something you can't really ever rely on.
In talking to my fellow planners in the Commonwealth, no one knows of one that's been awarded yet.
I feel like there maybe was one a long time ago, but it basically never happens. So usually when people ask about it, we say try to forget about it, because there's enough wiggle room in how they do their calculations. It always ends up they don't know anything. So that's just how it is. I don't know all the details of why that is, but that is sort of the reality of Chapter 40S.
Well, all of our school buildings are obsolete. And we're going to put a tremendous amount of money into them, or something's going to happen if they don't get new. And when you've got 750 units, 730 units, whatever it turns out to be, MBTA. Same thing going into Wenham, that's 1,500 units. I don't know how many children are gonna come out of that. And then you've got, well, if the Gordon Conwell apartments get repopulated with affordable families, we could have a tremendous school population out of this whole thing. So we really need to be looking at relevance of this going forward, which is, big stuff. Is kind of where I am. I mean, MBTA is, what, 17 units per acre, and
15.
and we don't want it spread all over the area, because that's going to totally destroy the quality of life in this town.
Yep.
But do you want it all in one spot?
Well, that'd be great, but
I don't know if it would
eight-story
be great.
buildings?
That wouldn't be great, is my point, you know?
No, it wouldn't be
Great,
great, but there's a, it's gonna take a lot of planning and nudging and
Right, so-
manipulation to get something that doesn't destroy the town.
So right now, I mean, we have to define an overlay district, right? So we should say, it's important to comply, or whatever the wording is, and then look at all opportunities to manage,
How it's
compliance with.
executed.
Right,
We have
and
to
I think
think-
that's part of like the adopting new planning tools and such to look at areas, like the Winthrop School, right? The form-based stuff, I meant to say.
Right.
I mean, I take Rosie's point, but we have to assume it's gonna happen, because
Yeah.
the state is desperate. and-
Well, we assumed 40B was gonna happen too, and the percent, and how many years later. Now, I know there's a stick on this one, but there's a lot of communities that are saying, okay, I'll just give the district, but there could be a wave of voices that push back on that.
We'll know in the next week,
Well-
because Milton is voting tonight.
Yeah.
And
That is
so
true.
the referendum in Milton is whether or not the districts that were approved at a representative town meeting are going to stand. And then we'll see whether Andrea Camp sues the town of Milton,
Yeah.
which could happen. She's threatening to sue
Developers are
them.
going to go where there's infrastructure and where there's access.
Right.
And we have pretty much no infrastructure.
Right.
And limited access.
Right.
I don't know how the MBTA trains are gonna handle it, let alone.
We have the train, and that's great, but it takes a lot more than a train to.
No, yeah, I'm
accommodate
saying, I don't
this.
think the trains can handle that many
And-
people.
Yeah,
But,
and the likelihood of developers picking communities that are really difficult in terms of the access part, the infrastructure lack, they're gonna go where it's easier to develop, and that's not us.
That's today, but in 10 years, if the water situation straightens out and everything, we have to be ready. That's the
We
thing.
get-
Infrastructure.
Exactly.
And we
We
gotta
get
have
and with that
control.
density, they're gonna get a lot more money for it, so.
If we get connected to the MWRA, then you bet your bottom dollar it's happening.
They're gonna love it. And,
So we mentioned, comply but maintain the scenic or the culture of, that resides in Hamilton today.
Well, that's not going to happen if all of these contingencies happen.
if we're gonna maintain control of our little town here,
We will
somehow,
not
we need to
if all of these
plan ahead.
things
We need to
happen.
be ready.
There's 270-plus towns having the same discussion right now.
Right,
I bet they are.
exactly.
Right, so
And a
we'll,
lot of them are pushing back
Right.
really
Right.
hard as
Wenham
well.
is big time.
Yeah, it's one thing to say theoretically, we have to do this and this and this, but yet we are a small town and people love a small town, and we need to think about the trade-offs if we just comply with these idealistic and theoretical mandates, quote unquote, from the state. We need to think about the realistic possibility of that happening. And Patrick, you bring up some very good points. And I don't, this is totally off subject, Sarah, I realize, but what is the reality of our little town hooking into MWRA? I mean, I don't know.
Well, they're in Reading, they're in Marblehead, they bracket Salem on both sides. They have waived entry fees for new customers for 5 years because they're desperate to bring people in, bring new towns in, to take up the cost of the new aqueduct they just built. The question is that aqueduct sufficient to do us and the other towns downstream? Or would they have to build another new aqueduct? If they have to build another new aqueduct, it's not gonna happen.
And what are the
Something else will
costs
happen.
for
Well, I
that?
don't know what it
So-
is.
Yeah, so I think the way the plan can address that is to have as part of the, discussion of wastewater, as a recommendation, that as one of the potential options, continue to assess the feasibility of that.
Right.
Just make a note in here, MWRTA is a potential solution, and the town should continue to, actively, engage with that agency. That's how I'd address it in here. All right.
Should we make a list of current projects, like we just brainstormed and talked about a lot, that we can, make sure, we have on one piece of paper, that Sarah and all of us can look at and see how we work those in, and referenced, if anything, into this document, so it doesn't look like it's a generic document, but it actually talks about key issues. It talks about, what the community has said, they want to maintain, protect, et cetera, and these are, and how do we insert some of these? So if they go, oh, yeah, they know this is going on, it's not the final answer, but do things like this to continue, to,
Yeah, make them current,
Yeah.
sort of issues.
and I just, then we can kind of like go through the doc and find out where it's referenced, and it's in there. So as people read this throughout the community and in the town, they say, okay, they got the key issues right, they see that we're working on some things, they want it to continue, to comply and work on things, but maintain, the culture of Hamilton. Is that worthwhile, or do you think that's already been communicated? I think I could write it on a sheet, but I would want to make sure everybody's got,
There's one other issue. Judy Barrett put her finger on it back in 2004, 2006. And it's only mentioned kind of in passing here. And that is the need for, I think, a full-time planner, not somebody who's been bogged down by Michael Lombardo and 50 million other bits of minutia, which, has made it absolutely impossible. I mean, this is a huge point right now, when there's so many things that are cranking.
did we reference something like that in the,
Am I right or not? I mean, you were buried.
Yeah.
Buried.
I thought
Okay.
we mentioned something
I
like
don't
that.
mean to pick on you, because I know you, Michael put you in a hell of a spot.
All right, so that recommendation would be like add a full-time planner position, basically. Yeah.
Well, Judy said, do it, back in that then, you got it in here.
And we talk about hiring a full-time conservation agent, I didn't know if we had said something on the planning side.
I don't think we
There was a
do, but that's
person mentioned
good.
that.
Yeah. Planners do like to say hire more planners. That is true. But yeah, no, I think that's a good one.
If somebody if we don't have somebody
So-
who can run numbers on this stuff, we're never gonna know where the hell we are.
All right. So, I'm just trying to think of the best next steps where, we're in the timeline to come back around and get this, into a form, because I fear a little bit that we'll send it off in pieces, come back in, and, I don't know. Did Judy review this already, do we know, or I know she had sent us a note, Patrick said she was not feeling well, but I think she has by now, no, or?
She has looked at it. However, clearly, just as a firm, and personally, I did not give it the level of careful review that I probably should have, so I apologize for that. That will be rectified in the very near future. I'm putting this on the top of my list to fix all this. I'll be going through it with a fine-toothed comb, looking for, just rereading it generally, but also the specific things that were mentioned, the capitalization, the consistent referring to entities, making sure the numbers match, and if they don't, then there's a good reason, making sure that's clear. I've got a lot of notes.
I had, this is a little out of sequence here, but in the economic development section, so we have these categories of jobs. And I thought to myself, who works in these categories? I mean, we know doctors and lawyers and accountants and nurses and administrative assistants. I mean, so when you talk about management and administrative and waste management services. Well, what jobs are they? I mean, really. So professional, are they doctors and lawyers and accountants? And, you know, scientific, are they engineers? I mean, what, these categories don't resonate. They're just, they're planner speak. They're not people speak. I mean, we're trying to write to the citizens of Hamilton, and so these categories seem to me, they didn't elucidate much of anything in my mind. So that was one thing. Oh, and the other thing, there were reasons why the school population was decreasing. And in conjunction with that, it's been noted that the population of Hamilton is decreasing. And so maybe one of the things that needs to be addressed, and it might connect the dots, is that the occupancy of the apartments at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary is substantially reduced. And those apartments were not just for individual students, they were for families with children. So the decline in the population of Hamilton, the decline in the number of kids in the schools might be attributable to the decline in the residency at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. And also maybe, you know, professors moving out of town because their jobs are gone, or, you know, they just don't, you know, they're retired or whatever, and so that, or their children have grown. But I mean, the whole model of the seminary has changed. I mean, it used to be where the students attended classes on campus, and now the need for that has been substantially diminished. And I'm not making this up, and Patrick can corroborate what I'm saying, because Ken Barnes has said it to the planning board on numerous occasions. And their model is now, you know, teaching online. So there will still be students there, a much smaller number, and they want to have some space available for students that come for special courses from overseas or whatever, but they will not have the same level of student population as they do now. And so the apartments are I think have a lot of vacancy, and so that
They're
might
about
be.
50% full.
Yeah, so that might be why there are less students in the schools.
There aren't a lot of houses around here that are boarded up.
No, but it could be from Gordon Conwell.
I think there was only a decrease in like 200.
Yeah, but that would imply, yeah, there were probably, what, 65 kids at its peak that went to the school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
45.
And we didn't get any
I
money
thought.
for that, too, so one
Yeah.
would think, too, our average.
Yeah.
So
But,
that was, yeah.
But that could be, you're right, I mean,
It's
we call
possible.
some of that, we also have a lot of open space in this town, you know, as a percent of total, you know, that's probably an indicator. Have we purchased more properties and made it open space than initially, you know, over a period of time, too? And if it shut out development growth of housing in that manner as well. There are a number of things we've done as a community, and we're, you know, we are where we are, but every time a property comes up, you know, our first reaction is to protect it.
The big thing is to take a look at it, look at the marginal revenue, and then try to figure out what the marginal cost is gonna be. And an awful lot of times, the marginal cost is gonna exceed the marginal revenue, whatever development comes in, just in new pipes and sidewalks and God knows what else.
Right.
The other question that, as I ran into this thing, I was trying to find out Pleasant Avenue. I didn't realize Pleasant Avenue, there was a thing about restriping the lines where Asbury Street and Highland Street come together with Pleasant Avenue. And there's also a Pleasant Street, which I think is right over by you, Rosie. And it turns out Pleasant Avenue is the driveway of Asbury Grove.
Oh, okay.
So.
Is the
are we
Grove even
obliged to
mentioned
be-
in this, or? I don't know that I saw the Grove mentioned.
Yeah, it's mentioned.
The Grove
It
is
should
not
be.
mentioned.
I didn't see it in,
But that's what it is. I finally
Not
found
profit.
Pleasant Avenue. And they want to put a zebra, and there's all kinds of, you know, changes of radiuses and zebras and stuff going in on the road. Do we really have to do that for Asbury Grove? I mean, it's a private community.
Well, I had a question. Rosie said it is in Hamilton, but I thought Pingree Park was in Wenham.
It's both. There's portion of it is in Hamilton.
But the boundary, I looked at the boundary, and if there would just be a fragment.
Right.
But what is not in Hamilton?
Where is it in Hamilton? Like in the front right corner, maybe, or?
Probably, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd check that, because it says, I mean, I Googled it, Pingree Park, it says Wenham.
It's in Wenham.
Well,
thought so.
there is a portion that's in Hamilton, granted, it's a very small portion.
Like what?
And I don't know exactly how much of it, and I don't even know why, I don't know how I know it, but I do know.
I gotta believe the whole thing's in Wenham. But I tell you what's not in Hamilton, and that's the Audubon Sanctuary. As far as I know, that's Topsfield.
I see a corner of Pingree Park in Hamilton in the
Is
map,
it? There's a
Yeah, I
corner.
thought.
47
Well,
or
I had
48.
to
It
look
is,
up.
we do have a portion of it in Hamilton.
I'll double check how it's discussed. If it's like Pingree Park is in Hamilton, that's misleading, but I'll take a look at that. I
A
have
small
a note.
portion.
Might be the
Tiny
least of
fraction.
our worries
That's
right
Wenham.
No, yeah.
That's fair.
No, but I
Look
mean,
at
I
page
just
47 and
thought,
48. It's-
I was always under the impression it was in Wenham. And then there's Fairfield Park, which I'd never heard of, but it's Fairhaven Field, and I still hadn't heard of that, but that's in Hamilton.
Fairhaven Field,
Yeah,
is that the one at the library, where the rec
at the
center
rec center, I think.
Yeah,
is? Is it?
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's that field.
Fairhaven Field.
Huh.
Yeah, I had to Google that.
Oh, because the Fairhaven School, this Fairhaven nursery used to be there, right? In the old high school, the old Lamson School,
Yeah.
and Fairhaven Child Care took that over, and then they moved over to the other side of town.
Huh, yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't doubt that. I know what you're talking
Didn't
about.
go to the,
No, I mean, I could have probably, but, no.
Can I talk about the implementation program a minute?
Sure.
So, number one, we have key to list of leadership parties, key to priority rankings, and key to elemental abbreviations. So I would prefer seeing all of those abbreviations eliminated and just write out what needs to be written out in the implementation program, if it fits. If it doesn't fit, I would put the list of leadership parties and the other categories in alphabetical order, so you can find them more readily. And then the other thing with respect to the implementation program, I would get sorted out in the, whether, you're using immediate, short, and long-term. I would color code them, so it was really clear what is immediate, what is short-term, what is long-term, and what is ongoing. So, obviously, red would be immediate. And that way, when the select board, the planning board, any other boards are reviewing this, they'll know the priority right out of the box because it's color-coded.
All right.
nursery school, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting for more comments, or we can start talking about how we want to transmit them in writing. I don't know. Bill, you're the...
I think using one of your matrix pages was really helpful, and then we would see each other's like we did last time, right? So that if we're concerned about something, somebody else has already addressed it, we don't need to belabor the point.
Yeah, we can certainly do it that way. That would also make it easier for us as well. As to what you were saying, Marnie, about a lot of your comments maybe not fitting into that, hopefully a lot of that will come out in just a general, careful re-review of everything. I've also taken, like I said, I've taken notes of the types of issues you've pointed out to pay special attention to. Like if there's any more types of issues that we haven't discussed that you wanted to point out in the written document, you could do that. Otherwise, just focus on more specific instances of factual or grammatical corrections, rather than things that repeat a ton.
Well, sometimes, you had abbreviations, and I was like, what?
Okay.
So maybe a good move is, from tonight, everyone kind of send kind of the themes that you would like in that view that Sarah and team are gonna do, like typos, inconsistencies, capitalization, things like that, and then in parallel, maybe you resend out that grid, and we can, for those who want to, throw, page this, that, so you can go specific. It may just be a validation for you because you've already found it when you went through it, or maybe okay, I'll make sure I hit that. I do think it could be valuable for Marnie and/or Jack and you to kind of either get together and plow through it with it open. I think that would be more efficient, but absent the ability to do that, I'd recommend, sending stuff back and forth, whether it's bullets in an email of topics and themes to look for, and then maybe a grid that kind of, on page 64, this, you know what I mean?
Just by the chapters.
Yeah.
Might be, keep it condensed.
Oh, I had another.
I just don't want a lot of time to go by without like letting us get specific and finding things, because they will be, it's important, and I know Patrick, maybe the town or somebody, yourself, I know you're gonna be out a little bit, but, maybe that type of view is valuable too, knowing all the different projects that are going on. Hey, we should reference that. Hey, it is in here, check. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. I think what I'll do is I'll send you some bullets for tomorrow on just themes as you do your review, and then, if you can provide a sheet, for those who want to, we can kind of throw in more specifics.
All right, so obviously a lot of the just proofreading review I can start on right away. So in terms of timeframe for returning written comments, and then timeframe for producing a new draft, let's see. So,
Do people all agree we should return written comments, or?
Yeah,
I think it'd be helpful.
I think the first stage, Marnie, I've got the complete copy here. Why don't I go through this with a red pen? And then pass it over to you or vice versa. And then we won't duplicate the effort.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You want to do that?
Yeah. If you go
Physically
through
pass
it
it,
with a
pass it
red,
hot potato.
I like that.
And then
all right.
I also find it very efficient to go through a printed doc with a pen and just.
that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
yeah. No, if you do that, because I think you picked up things that I didn't, and so then, you can do it in red, I could do it in green, and, then she would have our,
Did you get Woodland Meadow?
I did, and I got the Essex County Trails Association when it's singular, trail.
Here we go. Okay, good.
But I think you picked up a lot of things with the maps. Okay, but one column, it's table 4.2.7, Hamilton Complete Streets. So there's the project name, the project description, and then, well, what's its status? So I thought we needed a third column. Is it done? Not done? Half done? To be done?
All right. All right.
And then, check the footnotes, because some of them I just couldn't.
Yeah, I will be going through and checking all the footnotes.
Oh, and I know, the other thing, you referred to a water quality report from 2020. There's a water quality report from the DPW, from the Water Department, 2022.
They do it every year, don't they?
Well, we don't have the 2023 yet, but we have the 2022.
Was that the Dewberry report?
No, it's on the town website. It's from the Water Department. And they go through, and, the Commonwealth will tell them if there are deficiencies, if they haven't done the appropriate testing, or the testing shows, the School Street well showed elevated levels of PFAS.
They can't use it. It's done. It's closed down.
Yeah, so, did they open it back up, or it's still closed, the
No,
school?
they can't use it.
Yeah, so they have all that information on there.
They say they could put a package plan in there to get the PFAS out, but
Reverse osmosis, I think it's expensive.
the regular-
I think they, yeah, not to drill into that, but yeah, I think the grass was another thing, right? That was, I think, I don't want to go down that path, but, one other thing too, if we're just gonna lob and stuff, I thought on page 57, I don't know that it made sense to have, we do talk about the Development Corp, HTC, but it's got a header of local policies and practices. I think it's kind of buried, and maybe could use a little more meat on that bone, but unless it's referenced elsewhere, that's the only place I saw it. And we know Rick and Scott came into our meeting, and they're gonna be looking for that, and they've done a lot of good stuff. It references the mixed-use housing, where they started in 2016, and they're doing a lot right now, too, right? They've applied for a grant, but they continue to look. They're working with the town. They've got some money allocated. I think working with the planning board, right?
Working
So
with the-
I don't know, what do you got? It's just under local policies and practices. I don't know if that deserves its own.
What page is that?
I'm on 57.
You know, to me, it's partly economic development, it's business development.
Yep.
They're helping to promote the local vitality of our business community, which is really important in my opinion.
Right. It is in the major category 4.7, which is economic development. You just, the header that it's under is local policies and practices.
Okay, note
I don't know, I
taken.
mean, what do you guys, I mean, it just seems buried, and there's probably a few more nuggets I'll send to kind of add to it, that's all.
Yeah, so that's true. And so on page 68, there's a key issue called strengthening the downtown. And that's where I referenced that the HDC was working in conjunction with the planning board with respect to this form-based code
Yes.
initiative and try and incorporate Section 3A in that. So the HDC, its mandate doesn't extend to the Winthrop School. Their mandate is only in the business district.
Correct.
So,
Just color.
yeah. They almost have to work with the planning board in the event, and I know that it's not certain, but in the event the Winthrop school site became available.
Agree. Mine messed up in printing.
So, yeah, that's another example. In some situations, you referred to the Hamilton Development Corporation written out. Other times, it's HDC, and other times, it's Hamilton Development Corp., CORP, period. So we want to make sure it's all consistent across the board.
All right, so in terms of timeline for written comments, just so I can get my calendar in order, people who are actually planning on writing the comments push back if it, doesn't sound reasonable, but I don't know, like end of next week, is that too soon? What do you think?
No, I'll get right on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine for me, I mean,
I actually have the week off, so. I'll have
Oh,
more
very
time
good.
to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not going to wait to start this revision to get those comments back, but
Yeah.
I actually, I don't know, when do you think you could get them to me? Actually, you know what? I'll give you my comments here.
Oh,
I'll give you what I have handwritten. You might have trouble reading my writing, but, because I'm going to be really busy next week, and then I'm away
you
for a
want,
week.
are you better off this week? Do you want to take this week and I'll do it next week?
Well, I've already gone through it, so I can give you my comments, and then,
Okay.
and maybe you can just incorporate them, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And then you can always call me if you can't figure out what I've written.
Yeah.
Just take a screenshot with, if I'm going to be away, but you could take a screenshot with your phone and just say, what did you mean here?
Unfortunately, my writing's even worse than yours.
Friday, hit Friday of next week, and if people need extensions because it's gonna take longer, we wanna get it right, we'll definitely give some, but from a planning perspective, let's try to, get some feedback.
Yeah, let's get right on this thing so we get it done.
And certainly before then, maybe even tomorrow, start sending these themes of things that Sarah can have in her head as she goes through it, and say, oh yeah, okay, I should be looking for that, you know?
And, you know, again, I've got a lot of notes from tonight.
Right.
So I'm ready to roll on you fixing this up. We're going to get you a really good document that we all can be proud of. This will all be ironed out. I will make sure it is.
All right, perfect.
So then you'd want to meet in March.
So then, like, if we look at a calendar, like, if we get it to you by the end of next week, you know, you need another week to incorporate or look, or you think by then you'll only need 60% of what we gave you because you've already hit it? You know, let's kind
Hard to
of,
say. I mean, not having seen the comments, I don't know how many there are. I mean, I will certainly have addressed some of them in the general proofreading wave and based on the stuff I've already taken notes on, but I'm not sure. Now, the next couple weeks are not that crazy for me, which is the least busy I get. So the timing's fine. So I can start right on it, I think.
so why don't we say, so by 2/23, we're gonna send you comments. Then, you know, by March 1, you know, you'll shoot them back and we'll take another look at it and then try to get together, I don't know, the first or second week of March. What do we think about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna get this thing out as fast as I can.
Yeah, me too. As well.
Yep, that's my goal as well. We want to get this done and done right. So, I think that will be all right in terms of timing.
And let's try to get a tentative date then on our calendars in March. What do I have going on? We have, shoot. We could be looking, what was our standard? Was it Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the
March
second
6th.
Wednesday.
So, yeah, like the
Wednesdays
6th or 13th?
13 for me.
Is that too far out or too close in, or?
That's our default meeting date,
Okay, so 2/13?
because we're doing, the 13th of March,
Right.
every month, and the second Wednesday, that's that.
Okay.
And we'll aim to have a final by then.
Right. So maybe, Patrick, should we just post it? I don't know your availability.
We should just post
Let's
it.
just post it for, you know, review, draft of master plan, and we're always looking to approve minutes if we have any, and, you know, pretty much mirror what we did for today.
Oh, and could we get the appendices? And at that point, will we have like the pictures and any of the graphics inserted in here, whatever?
Probably not. Probably going to be too focused on the content to get that done within the next few weeks. But yeah, probably not. But that will be the next thing we work on. Once the actual like content is set, then we can start formatting and making it look nice, and you know, yeah, no, the plan will look very nice. What you're looking at is, you know, ugly, unformatted. It'll look a lot nicer than that.
The introduction?
I'm gonna take a stab at that, and we'll circulate it around, you know, right in parallel of what we're doing over the next 2 weeks.
Oh, and you know, were the appendices actually referenced in the document?
So the appendices are the summaries from the public meetings, which you have seen, I believe. So basically, that's just a record, like a very direct record of what the public's input was. So people can at least go and see what the public said, even if not all of it got, you know, perfectly incorporated into the plan. They at least have a record of, you know, this many people came, here's notes on what they said. Just having that, you know, data live with the plan is something we'll typically do.
Well, sometimes you reference public input, and I thought, you know, you might then refer,
Oh,
see
yeah.
appendix, whatever, where
Oh, yeah.
it said the following, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Yep. All right.
Any other discussions on the kind of schedule we outlined, you know, and what we'll do over the next few weeks? So by, you know, send tomorrow or by the end of this week some general notes on things to look for. By 2/23, we'll send back written comments. I don't know if you're going to provide a document for that, us to put it in?
Yeah,
Okay, if
I'll
you can do
resend a
that.
blank template for that.
And then you'll push it back by March 1st, and then we'll post a meeting for 3/13, which is our regular second Wednesday, 6:30.
And you think 4.1.1 map is in here now?
Yeah, I will make sure that all the maps are labeled properly. And in the final document, they'll probably be like interspersed in the relevant sections, not all like thrown in at the end.
And I'll go check Ted's information about
He emailed it to
the
you as well.
800 acres. I mean,
Yeah.
does that include the cemeteries and everything else?
Yes.
Yeah, it probably does, yeah.
Yeah, we could build a school in the cemetery.
I mean, I'll double check
Guess they're
that. but-
obligated to, you know, propose or list
Yeah.
conceivable alternative sites before they concluded that it would be the same site, the current Cutler site or the current.
Well, the
Whit-
cemetery's
Whitman.
been moved once. It used to be across from the post office. They moved it across
Oh.
the street.
As a planner, I might not propose that, but hey, not my town.
That would augment it, certainly. All those damn stones in
Well, I have
Okay.
nothing else.
So I think we have a plan.
the way. Okay,
Good. Thank you, everyone, for going through this, and, you know, it's constructive discussion. We've got some work to do, but, you know, we'll get there, as Sarah said.
you want a motion?
No, any minutes available to approve?
No, you know what, I wasn't here last month, and nobody took minutes, and we didn't assign anybody tonight. I can take care of tonight's minutes, I was paying attention.
Okay. I will make sure we get minutes on the next one then.
Tonight's minutes basically have one bullet point.
I know, I'll do them.
And we'll,
Discussion ensued,
I saw Ted over there. There were no minutes.
real time.
you
I'm
taking
AIing it.
the Jack attack.
It's all ChatGPT has already summarized it.
Were
You're
you-
joking. No, I wasn't taking notes.
Okay, yeah.
So, okay.
You want
So
a motion?
with the- Yes,
I
please.
move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go.
We're adjourned at
You nailed it.
7:48.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for driving out.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you for making the drive. It's good to see you.
No, my pleasure.
That's useful.
No, absolutely. I think this was good to be in person for.
I don't know. I think we scared